Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Weather Reporting and Forecasting program organized by the Globe family of Royal College. This project was initiated in 2017, but this year, as we are unable to hold it physically, we thought of conducting it through an online platform, and this time the project will consist of 4 lectures. Today, we will be having the first lecture of this lecture series, and it will be about weather observation, focusing on cloud cover, daily temperature, and rain depth. To conduct today's lecture, we have here with us a very experienced individual in this field, Mrs. Shiromani Jayawardena. She is the present Director of Forecasting and Decision Support at the Department of Meteorology, Sri Lanka. She is a member of the Association of Disaster Risk Management Professionals, Sri Lanka. She is a member of the Meteorological Association of South Asia. She is a member of the Meteorological Society of America. She is a research assistant at the Department of Meteorology at the University of Hawaii in USA. And she also has a research interest in climate change, tropical cyclones, seasonal forecasting, heavy rainfall events, and the Asian monsoon. Then, without further ado, I would like to invite Mrs. Shiromani Jayawardena to conduct the lecture. Over to you, madam.
Okay, thank you very much, Puta, for the nice introduction. And first of all, let me thank you, you and all your friends for inviting me for this lecture series. And I am really happy that you have some interest regarding weather observations and weather forecasting, because recently we have seen many extreme weather events which lead to disasters all over the world, especially even very well developed countries where they have very sophisticated early warning systems. Even their early warning system also failed because we have experienced very extremely heavy rainfall events these days. Once again, thank you, and thank you, Janit Puta also, because he's the one who invited me. So first, another thing I want to tell you, during my lecture, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or you can put your question in the chat box. Buddha Puta, you can ask me, you can interrupt at any time, because I haven't done any lectures for the school children. So I don't know, I'm going little bit too fast, maybe a little bit more advanced, so you can interrupt me at any time, right? So why do we need to learn about weather? Because of the climatic change, recent years we experience very extreme weather conditions. Extreme temperatures, extreme rainfalls will be new norms in coming decade. This is happening because we are unable to act to stop climate change. So that's the reason. Climate inaction is the main reason we experience this type of extremely heavy rainfall. So if we consider the last maybe like 100 years, so this is the all disasters. You can see very increasing trend. To weather and water, we call it hydrometeorological disasters, like droughts, extreme rainfalls, floods, extreme temperatures. So these are hydrometeorological disasters. So they are increasing very rapidly, especially during last 10-20 decade, last 10-20 years. And this graph shows the flood events occurred in different parts of the country. So Asia, we can see very rapid increasing number of flood events. So this is because of the climate change. So climate change leads to changes in frequency, intensity, spatial extent, duration and timing of weather and climate extremes, and which lead to long-term increases in economic losses due to climate-related disasters. So if most natural disasters, 90% of the natural disasters are related to climate during recent past. So recently article published about the deaths and economic losses due to during past 50 years from 2017 to 2019. So there are 650,000 deaths due to droughts, and nearly 577,000 deaths due to storms like cyclones, and 58,000 deaths due to floods, and 55,000 deaths due to extreme temperatures. And economic loss also, it goes like US dollars 521 billion due to storms, and 100 billion US dollars due to floods. So this and other things, especially if we consider the past month. So we, especially Canada and United States, they experience historic heat wave. More than 500 people died because of this heat wave. So you can see people, they go to like lakes and streams because they cannot bear these high temperatures. So other thing is the Death Valley, California, United States, they report highest temperatures on record actually, because there was another 58 degrees Celsius event, but that was happening in year 1090s. So because of the accuracy, there's a problem with the accuracy, so they will not take as the highest recorded temperature. So this Death Valley record 54.4 degrees Celsius in July 2021, as well as August 16, 2020. And these highest temperatures lead to forest fires also. Especially this is from California. We can see a smoke coming from these forest fires, travels a very long distance, affecting the air pollution in these regions. Another thing is the recently, like mid-June, July 2021, this Western Europe countries, they experience very heavy rain, and which leads to floods as well as mudslides, killing more than 200 people, as well as still dozens are missing. So this, especially in most deaths occurred in Germany. Germany has very sophisticated weather forecasting system, early warning system, but these extreme events fail to deliver that warning into these people. That's why 200 people killed due to floods in even these well-developed countries. And I hope you have heard about this Chinese city, Sonju, 20th July this year, 2021. So there was extreme rainfall event. Even subways, the underground rail line also filled with water. So I heard like more than 75 people died because of this event. And this area received 200 millimeter rainfall in 1 hour. So their annual rainfall is 650 millimeters annual rain. So they received that annual rain amount in 2 days. And 1/3 of that annual rain occurred in 1 hour. So these are very extreme rainfall events. So leading to a sudden increase of water levels. So all you have to be prepared for this type of extreme events in future, even in Sri Lanka. So that's why I think this lecture series is very important. You need to know what kind of dangerous time we are living. So this is actually the Europe that rain. So the in terms of the amount, it's not very high, like 150 millimeter rain occurred in that Europe, but they received this type of rain consecutively, like for 3-4 days. So that's why that area was flooded, and the even authorities did not expect that much of high water level. They experienced like water level will rise up to 1 meter, but what happened is it rose up to 6 meters. So 6 times more than they expected. And this is that Chinese flood event. From June 18th to 21st, though they receive this Honshu city received 720 millimeter rainfall, and their annual average is 641. So more than half of that amount received in 6 hours, and 200 millimeter rainfall received from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. So that is the disaster happened because that time most of the people are in the roads, because that time, you know, office they are after office they are going for their home. So most of them are in the roads, and these roads are became rivers. So very high intense water came throughout this road. So that's why they had to face a very disaster situation. And so this is, I want to compare this, especially this European one and Sri Lankan one. In May 13th, we received more than 300 millimeter rainfall over these some areas. So this comparatively, they receive less. So these amounts you can see 158, 154, like that. But our one is this color, like this purple color is about 200 millimeter. So the impact is different, maybe because our country is not a landlocked country. We have ocean, so the runoff of the water can quickly go to the ocean. So that's why, maybe that's the reason we didn't have that much disaster compared to Europe. So in this year also, we experienced very extreme rainfall event more frequently. Like in previous years also, we experienced this type of extreme rainfall events. But this year, from May 13 to July 9th, we had 4 extreme rainfall events, which leads to flooding, strong winds, landslides, and many other damages. So, so this is, that's why I have to say that we experience more frequent extreme events because of this changing climate. In addition to that, not only excess of water, sometimes we receive deficit of water, especially in year 2016. I hope you remember, we had very extreme rainfall event in month of May, which killed more than 200 millimeter rainfall people in 2016 and more than 280 people in 2017. But in between, we didn't receive much rain. So this map shows amount of rainfall compared to the climatology. Climatology is a long-term average. The rainfall we are expecting, that is the climatological average. For example, Colombo, in month of May, we expect 400 millimeter rainfall. That is the average rainfall we in that month. But sometimes we experience 3-4 times more rain in that month. So this month also, so we can see if you, this month, May 2016, we received more than 200% rainfall, but other months from June to December, we receive very less summer, very dry. Brown color is less rain, negative rainfall. That is comparatively, we didn't receive much rain. So which lead to one of the worst droughts in Sri Lanka. So 28 lakhs people affected due to this drought in 2017. So then, because of these extreme events, now there's a concept, weather ready nation. We have to build a weather ready nation. So we have to be resilient to these disasters. Resilient means if we will not be shocked by this type of disasters. So we have to be used to this type of disasters. So for the weather ready nation concept is, we can build, if we build weather ready nation and improve our preparedness for the extreme events, so we can reduce the impact of these extreme events. So for that, we need to aware people about this type of extreme events, and we have to reduce the vulnerability. Vulnerable people is like, for example, if for example, if there's a drought, so if we can supply drinking water, so their vulnerability can be reduced. So like that, and we need to improve the accuracy of forecast, early warnings, and the early warnings has to reach to the last mile. That means the people who affected by the flood or drought or whatever extreme event, this warning has to reach to for them, and so they can take action if they want to. If they need to evacuate them to another safer place, so they have to go for that safer place, so they can save their life. So there are many things we have to do, like we have to build the communication, mobile apps, and so somehow we have to improve the weather forecasting, and we have to improve the observation network, and we have to strengthen the partnerships, because for example, meteorology department predict and do the early warning, but the response part is taken by the disaster management center, and flood warning issued by the irrigation department, landslide warning issued by the National Building Research Organization. So the partnership has to, we have to strengthen the partnership. So in that way, we can build this weather ready nation. So let's talk about weather, because we have, so far we talk about what are the things we experience right now. And weather is defined as the state of the atmosphere at that particular place and that particular time, because weather is always changing. The atmosphere is always changing. So after 1 hour, things can be different from right now. How can we express that weather? So for that, we have some quantitative variables like temperature, humidity, cloudiness, precipitation. What is precipitation? Precipitation is the liquid form and solid form of rainfall. Like solid form is the snow. Snow also part of the precipitation. Rainfall is the liquid form of the precipitation. Solid form of the precipitation is snow. In Sri Lanka, because we did not experience in snow, so we can say instead of precipitation, we can just say rainfall, and wind speed and wind direction. For example, like it can be cloudy. Overcast is if the full sky is filled with clouds, we call it overcast. Thunderstorms, I think you know, you get lightning and rain during thunderstorm as well as strong winds. So we'll discuss that a little bit later. And partly cloudy or partly sunny, as there are different types of showers also, heavy rain, sometimes light rain, and this type of conditions, quantitative variables used to express the weather condition. So express this weather condition, we need to monitor the atmosphere. For that, we have to have instruments. So these are the observation network, global surface observation network. So you can see developed countries have very dense observations, because to see what's happening in the atmosphere, you have to have data, you have to have observation, you have to have monitor, you have to monitor the atmosphere. For that, you need to have instruments. So USA and Europe and Japan, so they have very dense observation network. But unfortunately, Sri Lanka, we don't have that dense observation. And other thing is, Sri Lanka is surrounded by Indian Ocean. So Indian ocean observations are very limited, because ocean observation, this is the global observation system. So the ocean observation can comes from either ships, or there's separate instrument called weather buoy. So only from these two we can get ocean observation. But because with the technological advancement, we have that satellite data. So in satellite data, we can get some sort of information over the ocean. So these are the observations we do in Sri Lanka. So we have main meteorological observation network consists of 24 centers surrounding, covering coastal areas, because we have many stations over the coastal areas, because tropical cyclones and very hazardous weather phenomena occurred in the ocean. So we have to have more dense network over the coastal region. So that's why majority of our stations located in the coastal, covering coastal belt. And in addition to that, in this land area also, we have some stations. So this star, red star, represent the main meteorological stations. And then we have rainfall stations where we only measure rainfall. So this dot, black dot, represent rainfall. And then this blue star represent the radio sound observation. Radio sound is the upper air observation. These are all surface observation centers. And upper air observations, we have this black circle represent upper air observations, where we send balloons and get data of wind and wind direction. And this radio sound data, in addition to that, we will get temperature and humidity level also at different levels of the atmosphere. And in addition to that, we have satellites. There are many satellites and weather radars. Sri Lanka don't have weather radar right now. We will get soon from the Japanese government is willing to provide us two weather radars covering this region and this region. In 2000, maybe 2022 or 23, we will get this weather radar, and we will get satellite observations also. And so climate is, the weather is what is happening right now in the atmosphere. Climate is the long-term average of these parameters. Like for rainfall, if we get the statistics of 30th statistics, we found that Sri Lanka is experiencing a southwest monsoon, northeast monsoon, and 2 intermonsoons. And this is the rainfall pattern in Colombo. We'll get more rain in May as well as October and November. So this is the pattern. So that climate I'll discuss separately, right? So today we discuss about weather observations. So these are the observations we do. We measure air pressure, air temperature, humidity. Humidity is the amount of moisture we have in the atmosphere, and wind, wind speed and wind direction, and clouds. Precipitation is a rainfall, and visibility. Visibility is very important because visibility is very important for the aviation. Aviation is this air traffic controlling and for the pilots, because when they land the aircraft, they need to see very clearly the runway. So for them, the visibility is very important. So these are the parameters we measure in generally. So any questions so far? No questions? Comments or anything? I am talking fast, so can you understand what I'm saying? I need some kind of feedback from you.
Adam, up to now, I haven't got any questions on the chat. So
okay.
If anyone has any questions, or feel free.
You can ask right now.
Yes.
So shall we move forward? Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, sure. So then the temperature, because I think you need to know about how we measure temperature. So we measure temperature, air temperature, because temperature at different places can be different. Because for example, if you have a road, because the radiation can absorb very quickly and it can heat up very quickly, the temperature will be different. Temperature over tree can be different. Because we need to measure the temperature of air, so we have this kind of box. We call it Stevenson screen. So I can show you maybe next slide. This is the Stevenson screen. We put these thermometers there. Because then the direct sunshine will not affect the temperature of, because if we put this thermometer outside this place, so the direct sunshine can affect this temperature. But right now, we have this screen and there are some louvers, so air can move freely through these louvers, so we can measure air temperature. So in addition to that, we have the dry bulb temperature and wet bulb temperature, which gives us the humidity, the difference between that two. And we have like maximum temperature, because hourly the temperature can be different. So the maximum recorded temperature and minimum temperature, we measure that twice. And then another parameter is minimum grass temperature. What is the temperature at the ground, this level? And in addition to that, some agricultural purposes, we need to know soil temperature. So these thermometers measure temperatures at the earth below the surface at maybe like 10 centimeter depth, like that, right? And in addition to that, another very important parameter is the sea surface temperature. So this sea surface temperature is what is the temperature as ocean surface, because this is very important for tropical cyclones. All these hazardous weather phenomena, they develop in the ocean. To form tropical cyclone, sea surface temperature has to exceed some minimum value, like it has to exceed 26 degrees Celsius. So we can see not only surface, actually it's up to 60 meter depth also, the temperature has to be above 26 degrees Celsius. So So that's why it's very important to measure sea surface temperature. So as I mentioned earlier, we don't have much observations over ocean. So we use satellite observation for this ocean surface temperature, measure this ocean surface temperatures. So we'll do that later, right? And then, so temperature at different places are different. So what controls temperature? One is the latitude position. This is the annual mean temperature, that is the average from 1951 to 1980. So we can see the tropical regions. So even Sri Lanka, and this tropical region is the up to 20 degrees north and 20 degrees south from the equator. That belt we call tropical region, which has very high temperatures, but other places like these polar regions, they have less temperatures, right? Another thing is altitude. So we know that high mountain regions, like for example over these Himalayas, we have less temperatures. And even in Sri Lanka, we have central mountain located in Sri Lanka. So this lower area, we have less temperatures compared to the other region. Another is geographical location. Like if the country is surrounded by ocean, we have moderate temperatures. For example, some countries near the ocean, we have high temperatures than inland region. Other thing is ocean currents. Ocean also have some circulation patterns. So warm currents goes from here, and these currents are at the ocean surface, and deep cold currents will move from here to here. So these two regions, like for example, this in Canada, like eastern part of Canada and western part of Europe, temperatures are totally different. So these are like blue, and these are like brown and red. So that is because this warm ocean currents, Europe get moderate climate compared to Canada. So these factors affect, controls the temperature of different places. Is it clear? Okay, I need some feedback. So nobody talks, so I need to hear some voices actually. Otherwise, I'm just talking. Okay, let's move to the next one. So other thing is, I forgot to mention before, because we do the observations at particular time, not only Sri Lanka, all over the world. We do observations at particular time, like we do it based on the Greenwich time, or the Greenwich time, like 0100, we call it Sulo, Greenwich time 300, like every 3 hours, all over the Met stations measure temperatures, pressure, other the parameters at that particular time, because then only we can compare these things. So I'll discuss that a little later. And next one is, so because we measure this temperature values that you know, like air temperatures, so we can compare this with temperatures from because these thermometers invented in 1880. So after that, we have these readings. So we can get these temperature values and see what's happened to the temperature, whether it's increasing or decreasing, and trend analysis we can do. So that's why we found that this is up to only, we have in this figure shows only up to 2014. So this decade considered as the warmest decade. So we can see sharp increase in temperature, especially after 1970. And even in Sri Lanka, when we analyze this data, we found warm nights and cool nights warm nights are increasing and cool nights are decreasing. And day temperatures and night temperatures both are increasing, but night temperatures are increasing faster than day temperatures. So day-night temperature difference is decreasing. That we call diurnal temperature range. This will affects our potato cultivation, especially there should be some sort of diurnal temperatures to potato cultivation to optimum. But if in future, if we see this decrease in trend, Nuwara and Bandarban district will not be ideal places for grow these potatoes. Other thing is air pressure. For that we use this barometer, mercury barometer, but because we are actually mercury is banned now, so in future we will use separate other electronic sensors to measure air pressure, but still we have this mercury barometer to measure air pressure. So pressure is the weight exerted over unit area. So the pressure is decreasing with height. The highest pressure is at the surface, and once it goes to top of the atmosphere, okay, I'll explain this tsunami event at the end. Okay, so this surface pressure is very important because this is the monsoon wind pattern. Monsoon wind exert because of this low pressures develop over the Pakistan region and high pressures develop over the Madagascar region. So usually air moves from high pressure to low pressure, but because it crossed the equator, so there is a separate force called Coriolis force because Earth is rotating. So because of this Coriolis force, instead of moving directly over here to here, it's curved like this. So that's why we got southwest monsoon, and opposite occur during northeast monsoon. So it's very important to identify areas where we have high pressures and low pressures. So pressure is very important factor for the weather observation. Another thing is wind. Wind, we have anemometers. So this is cup anemometer, and we have wind vane for the wind direction. And especially this is during cyclonic storm Buravi, which crossed northern part of the country. So this is just after that. So we can see very high winds over here, and winds are to the north of this cyclonic center. We have winds are coming from this region, from here to here, sorry. And south of this center, winds coming from this region, from west to east. From here, east to west. So we can see the changes in wind direction. And so this is the symbol of wind. If it's calm, there's a circle. This is like less intense. If the wind speed is less, 5. In meteorology we use knots, nautical miles, or it can be kilometers per hour. So we can use, but in our our terminology we use knots. So this is the wind, how we measure wind. And because if you say like 20 kilometers per hour, wind can be increased up to 20 kilometers per hour, you will not get any idea. So there's a scale we call Buford scale, which shows us if the wind light flags are waving, so it can be gentle breeze. So the speed can be up 15 to 20 kilometers per hour. If the branches are, if you cannot, walk, or if you cannot hold your umbrella, so wind can be up to 40 to 50 kilometers per hour. And if the trees are uprooted, wind speed can be 90 to 100 kilometers per hour, like that. So there's a scale. From that scale, you also can just, you can see outside and see the trees, and you can measure the wind speed by yourself. Then other one is the humidity. Humidity also very important. Humidity is the amount of moisture present in the atmosphere. So humidity is relative humidity is that if how much we need more to saturate. That saturate is if, because clouds form, rain form if the humidity is 100%. So how much more moisture need to the atmosphere to become humid, saturate, or it become 100%. So that is the relative humidity. So we measure that we have wet bulb and dry bulb temperature. Wet bulb, we have somehow there's a thread and we have water here. So if the temperature difference between wet bulb and dry bulb temperature is more, then the atmosphere is less humid. If the difference is very small, then that means atmosphere is humid. So this relative humidity is depending on the temperature. For example, that Celsius centigrade 10 temperature, this amount of water vapor can be saturated. That is percentage is 100. But if we increase the temperature in 10% into 20 degrees Celsius, it will become half. 32 degrees, 1/4. Like that, depending on the temperature, this the relative humidity can change. So that is very important factor. Relative humidity is not conserved, it depending on the temperature, and there is some sort of relationship between temperature and water vapor, that is the relative humidity. For example, if you consider 1 cup, so this is if the 10% of relative humidity, something like that, 90%, there will be more water vapor. So next one is rainfall. Usually we use this rain gauge. So the standard diameter size is diameter 8 inches of the diameter of this, and there's a bucket. In a bucket where we can store the rainwater, and there's a measuring cylinder to measure that. So amount the height of this the bucket is the rain depth, or what we call it 0.5 millimeter or something like that. So this is the conventional way we measure, but right now, because we have like automatic weather rain gauges, so where if they receive like 0.5 millimeter rainfall with the gravity, so it moves this way and it tips like that and again like that. So so we can measure real-time information. This is very important because we have installed 100 automatic rain gauges. With that, we can measure the rainfall real time. Otherwise, this rainfall, we measure our main station 3 hourly, but other like we have 500 rain gauge stations, but they measure rainfall every 24 hours. That is 8:30 in the morning they measure and they empty bucket, and next day 8:30 morning they measure the rainfall amount. So this is the enclosure, because all these instruments, so these are the Stevenson screens. So we have a rain gauge here, and we have anemometers, different anemometers at different levels. So we have to measure this wind speed and wind direction at different levels. So we have like 10-meter anemometer and 100-meter like that. And then we have different, here we have evaporation fan and some soil temperatures also we have to measure. So there are some thermometers which measure underground temperatures also. So this whole place we call meteorological enclosure. So there are some, like standards we have to keep, because World Meteorological Organization, they have given some standard, like we have to, the grass height at some level. So we need to clean this place, and that rain gauge has to, there are some, some lengths between these instruments, standard lengths, and there will not be any trees or any buildings surrounding this area up to several meters, like maybe like 100 meters. Beyond that, only we can grow trees and other things, because so we have to maintain these things, because all over the world we measure this observation at particular time that I told you earlier. It's the Greenwich time. Every 3 hourly or hourly we have to measure these observations. We have to take these observations, and then only we can compare. So this is the global communication network to predict whether we cannot only using our meteorological stations data is not enough. We need to know what's happening, because monsoon is coming from Madagascar. Monsoon wind comes from Madagascar to this Pakistan. So we need at least this region, data from this region. So what we do, all the meteorological station all around the world, they measure at the same time, and all the data will come to the main meteorological center, and we send this to the regional meteorological center, that is New Delhi. And from New Delhi, they provide this data to other countries, and other countries also, they measure this data and send to the send to the regional centers, and through regional centers we can get data. This system called global telecommunication system, and this system is the fastest way we can send information at present. So after we get this data, we plot this data, and we have to analyze this data. We can find where the low pressure area is located, where the high pressure area is located. So how we call this equal pressure lines, we call it isobars, equal pressure lines. So we have to, earlier we do that manually, now we automatically, we can draw these type of lines. So this is the how we analyze weather data. And so this our main meteorological centers data is not enough, because we don't have much stations if we consider the all over the globe. So we have to rely on other alternative observations also. For that we use geostationary satellites, polar orbiting satellites, and aircraft measurements also. They also measure this wind speed at different levels of the atmosphere. They also send this data to other regional centers, and upper air observations, surface observations, ship observations. We send balloons, also ship also send balloons, ocean buoy data, and we have manual observations, automatic weather stations, and aircraft observations, and weather radar we don't have, but some countries they do have. So all this system we call weather observation network, a global observation network goes, this is the system, right? So because to predict what's going to happen in future, we need to know what's happening right now. So these observations provide us what's happening in the atmosphere and the ocean right now. So I will during next lecture how we do weather forecasting. So we call numerical weather prediction. We will see how this information will be useful. So this is the global observing system. So we have that surface meteorological stations, upper air stations, satellites, and aircraft, and ships with the ocean buoys. So all of these consisting the global observing system, and all the countries, they share this information. So these are the polar orbiting satellites, because polar orbiting satellites, the satellite is located around 850 kilometers above the surface, and so it will rotate in this satellite orbit, and Earth will rotate. Sorry, this is not polar, this is geostationary. So geostationary, geostationary satellite is that it look at a place same throughout their orbit, because it rotates same speed as Earth system. So you can see that if the satellite is above America, so throughout the day it observe this region. So this is one of the tropical cyclone, super tropical cyclone Amphan, which developed in 2020, around May 18. So we also got very heavy rain, because the cyclone is in the Bay of Bengal, but it strengthened the wind flow across Sri Lanka, and we received a lot of rain over this region. And this is the cyclonic Buravi. Sri Lanka is here. So just before it landfall, so we can see this cloud cluster. So this all we got in Sat-3D, that satellite sent by the India. So that is geostationary satellite, sorry, and polar orbiting satellite, something like this. So it's moving in different speed. So it measures different places at different times. Like, so these are like very small path it can measure. So it is above 850 kilometers from the surface satellite is located, and this is around 36,000 kilometers above the Earth's surface. So the rotation speed of the satellite and Earth is same. So that's why it can look into one place throughout the day. I hope it's clear. So this is the polar orbiting satellite. And other thing is, this geostationary satellites cannot observe polar regions. Both polar regions cannot observe. It only covers up to maybe 60 degree north and 60 degrees south. So this part is not observing by these geostationary satellites. But polar orbiting satellites, they can measure, observe the data from both North Pole and South Pole. So these are one ocean surface wind. We have scatterometer. So one of these polar orbiting satellites, they have this scatterometer. So where we can measure the ocean surface winds. So actually remote sensing, or these satellites, they are not measuring wind, so temperature, so anything directly. So what they measure is the solar radiation incident on Earth reflected back, and so they can sense that one, or solar radiation coming. If there's a cloud here, so it can reflect from the cloud, that they can measure, so they can observe, but they cannot observe any other things. Or Earth, we could call this infrared radiation. Infrared radiation is the radiation emitted by the Earth. So that infrared radiation also this satellites can measure. Or if there's a cloud here, so what the cloud do is they absorb this infrared radiation and it increase its temperature, and they also emit radiation at different wavelength. So that also this satellites can measure. Other thing is this we call passive sensors, because they measure solar radiation and terrestrial radiation. Active sensors, we can send some pulse to this like here, so they can send some pulse here, and the reflected back pulse they can measure. That we call active sensors. These are the weather radar, they also send some pulse, and reflected pulses they can measure. So these are the remote sensing techniques we use. So right now it's nearly 7, it's 5 p.m. So how long we can talk, Putta? How long you have this Zoom facility?
So Miss, the Zoom, so this meeting is unlimited minutes.
But,
but,
okay. I can continue, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this there are some satellite images Sri Lanka received. This is Himawari. Himawari satellite is sent by Chinese government, and there's another satellite, Funyon satellite, Chinese government also sent, and INSAT or Kalpana satellite from India, and Europe also they have Meteosat, which is located over the Indian Ocean. So these satellite data we can get, so we can see these clouds from these satellites. And there are other things like wind, ocean surface wind we can measure. And this is the precipitable water. So this this color, this purple color means that lot of moisture. So this is just before that the 13th heavy rainfall event. So there was a tropical cyclone developed over the Arabian Sea. So we can see very high moisture content over Sri Lanka, which bring lot of rainfall over Sri Lanka. And this is during the monsoon onset. So we had tropical cyclone Yas over the Bay of Bengal. So which also we have had lot of moist air over Sri Lanka region, bringing lot of rain. So again, this is June 3rd to 5th, we receive lot of rain. So again, you can see very high moisture region over Sri Lanka. So this precipitable water is one of very important measurements we got from the satellites. So precipitable water is the total water vapor amount from surface to top of the atmosphere. So if you bring all this water vapor into one maybe cup, so that is this amount of millimeter. So you can see 70 millimeter. So that is the length of that water vapor. So so that is called total precipitable water. So indication of the water vapor. So let's see how clouds form. So the observation part is over. So next we will go to the clouds also observation. One of the observation we do, but before that we need to see how clouds are formed. So for formation of the clouds, the relative humidity has to reach 100%. then only this cloud can condense into water vapor can condense into cloud liquid water. So for that, there should be two ingredients. One, there should be sufficient water vapor, and the water vapor cannot condense into a water droplet. They need to have a surface. For that, we call it cloud condensation nuclei, very tiny particles like smoke particles, volcano eruptions, that particles coming from volcano eruptions, aerosols, ocean sprays, these dust particles, these are act as a nuclei. And this over this surface, this water vapor can condense and develop into a water droplet. So, and so because the temperature, because if the surface temperature is not 100%, because temperature is reduced with the height. So if this air parcel can move up, so the cloud will form. For example, like I mentioned earlier, so the humidity is not 100% at this level. Here temperature at 30 degrees, but once it moves to 24 degrees, humidity can increase up to maybe 80%. But at 1.2 kilometers, it can be 100%. So then clouds will form. So for that formation of the clouds, the air parcel has to move upward. For that, also the mechanism we need to know. For that's why we send balloons to see the atmosphere, whether the atmosphere has ability to move this water vapor upward and form clouds. So for that we call atmospheric stability. So I will not talk that much about that. So once this cloud form, so with the wind, the dry air can come towards this cloud, and once the dry air comes, these clouds can evaporate. So that's why clouds will not be there for a long time. So it can evaporate, and if they move to more condensed, more moist areas, so it can develop further. And once these clouds develop into sufficient size, so raindrops can fall down, right? So let's see. So what are the type of clouds we have? So we have very high clouds we call cirroform. So Latin word, the cirro is the Latin word, it's kind of like a hair. So if you go outside, then you can see in the sky this kind of like hairy hair type clouds. So that is we call cirroform. And then we have puffy clouds like cotton balls, like puffy cotton balls. So this we call cumuloform, right? Then they have layer type clouds that we call stratoform, and very dark clouds, maybe purple color or black color or dark blue color clouds, we call nimbo. Nimbo is the rain clouds, right? So main four types are cirroform, cumuloform, stratoform, and this nimbo form, right? So first, let's see, there are 10 basic type clouds. Cirrus clouds are thin, hairy clouds. These clouds are actually formed by the ice crystals, not water droplets, ice crystals. So I got one question from somebody. He said, ask during winter time, how clouds can be there, because it has to be frozen, right? But actually clouds form from water droplets as well as ice particles. So ice particles can be there, and even winter. The temperature is not always go below zero. Sometimes it can be like 4 degrees Celsius also. So the cloud liquid also can be present. Other thing is, this is cirrocumulus. It's at high level, but kind of like that cotton balls. So this type of clouds. And other thing is cirrostratus. It's called thin layer clouds. So I think this photo I got maybe day before yesterday or something. So have you seen this one? I need your voice. So have you seen this one in Sri Lankan sky? Anybody?
Yes, I have.
Okay, this we called halo. Halo is, there is very thin cirrus clouds over here, the thin layer cloud, and these ice particles diffract this solar radiation. So that's why we got like rainbow type colors over here. So even during full moon days also, if moon is covered by this thin layer clouds, high thin layer clouds, we can see this type of halo during full moon days also, right? And then the mid-level clouds we have, mid-level also cumulus clouds. Mid-level in Latin we call alto. So alto cumulus we have, alto stratus we have, that is alto cumulus is like that cotton ball fluffy type, and this alto stratus is thin layer type at mid levels. And we have nimbostratus. Nimbostratus is it can be considered mid cloud or as well as low cloud, which brings lot of rain. And then we have low clouds, stratus, stratocumulus, and cumulus. So this is stratocumulus is, it's kind of like layer, as well as it kind of like fluffy cotton ball. So it's somewhere middle of that. Stratus is it's a layer type. Even fog is considered as a stratus layer. It's fog is a stratus layer at the surface. Nimbostratus provide rain. And cumulus clouds, we have this type of, I think we can, every day we can see these cumulus clouds, puffy type clouds. And this is cumulonimbus cloud. Cumulonimbus cloud is, it has very vertical depth from 500 meters to 20 kilometers up to, at least up to, we have different layers in the atmosphere. We call troposphere. Top of the troposphere, it's different from different parts of the world. Like near equator, it's 20 to 18 kilometer, but polar regions 8 kilometers. So in Sri Lanka, this cumulonimbus clouds can develop vertically up to 20 kilometers, and this brings us a lot of lightning, a lot of rain, and strong winds. So we'll discuss that separately, right? In between these two, we have cumulus congestus clouds also, right? So these are the 10 basic clouds. So at the top of that sky, we have cirrostratus, cirrocirrus, cirrocumulus, and we have altostratus, altocumulus, and we have nimbostratus, cumulus, stratocumulus, and stratus clouds. And this is the cumulonimbus. So cumulonimbus cloud can develop from its surface is around 500 meter up to 20 kilometers. So very vertical depth it has, and it brings lot of hazardous things, right? And next, we'll discuss about thunderstorms. So this is important because Sri Lanka, we frequently receive this type of thunderstorms. Thunderstorm is a cloud that this cumulonimbus cloud is the cloud responsible for thunderstorms. At a given time, 2,000 thunderstorms progress globally, and it brings lightning, strong winds, microburst. I'll talk that later because this microburst is very hazardous for aviation flights. Tornadoes, hail is very large ice particles, and heavy rain. So at same time, there are many hazards comes with thunderstorms. And this is one that
Excuse me.
Yes, any questions?
Is it possible to hail in Sri Lanka?
Not really, but we experience some ice particles with thunderstorms because you know, like I can show you one hail. I have one picture. This is hail. It's very huge ice particles, but because our atmosphere is warm, when it's come to the surface, it will evaporate. Or so small ice particles we experience, especially in Bandarawela, Badulla, even Colombo. I remember near Devalika a few years ago, they had these small ice particles before this thunderstorm. So hail is not like in other America and other this type of big hail particles we never experienced, but some sort of small ice particles, some places they got.
Thank you, madam.
So I am happy if you ask questions, so I can then it can be, you know, interactive session rather than I'm talking. So I think I can discuss the structure of the atmosphere. So like I mentioned earlier, so this cloud developed from very low levels, like maybe 500 meters to top of the atmosphere. It can be 12 kilometers. So within this cloud, we have updraft, that winds coming from surface to warm air coming from surface to top of this cloud, and downdraft, the winds coming from top of the cloud to surface. So this downdraft is very strong and very cold. So I don't know, maybe after this lecture, in September, end of September, we will get this type of thunderstorms. Sometimes August also we'll see, I don't know, next few days we will not get much thunderstorm, but later on there may be possibility. So before the thunderstorm, you can, I don't know whether you have expect, there is very cold, strong winds. Sometimes the temperature can drop up to 5 degrees, like if the 30 degrees from 25 degrees. So sudden cool air, very gust wind we can experience. So that is downdraft. Sometimes with the downdraft, there will be hail also comes. So because Sri Lanka is warm, so it evaporates, but still we can sometimes we experience these ice particles, and then warm updraft. And within this cloud, we have ice particles and super cool water droplets. Super cool water means below zero freezing level, this cloud liquid exists. So this is very dangerous for the aviation. If aircraft passes through these clouds, these super cool water droplets can deposit over these wings and instruments of the aircraft. So it can give error readings. I can show you later 2 examples of plane crashes because of this heavy thunderstorm. So usually pilots like to avoid this type of thunderstorms because this updraft and downdraft, lot of turbulence in this within this cloud. and top of the clouds, we can see this overshooting tops, because if the overshooting tops we can see from this we can observe from the satellite images. That means they have very strong updrafts. And this part we call anvil. Anvil usually consists of ice particles mostly, and supercooled water droplets always consist of the base of this middle part of this cloud. So I think I explained it very well. So these are the one of the this type of cumulonimbus cloud we experienced over Sri Lanka during last year. So we can see very high, this is lightning density, so very strong lightning. And so you can see that can you see it's like embossing out? Can you see that? So this is that overshooting tops we can see over here. See, these are the overshooting tops. So this is one picture. So it can updraft and downdraft. So tornadoes we did not experience that much, but this downdraft can bring lot of strong winds. Sometimes it damage a lot. So this is the lightning. So I'll explain that a little bit later. So recently we developed this map. So lightning activity is very high over this Ruang Valley region and over this part, and but top of the mountains less lightning activity, and this eastern parts of the country. This is on average 5-year average lightning flash density map. And so the lightning occurs actually because within that cloud we have updraft, downdraft. So we have that water droplets, this ice particles. So these collide each other and charge separation occurs. So there are cloud to this cloud to ground lightning, which is very dangerous, and cloud to air lightning, cloud to cloud lightning, within cloud intra-cloud lightning, or these are the intra-cloud lightning activity. So this is the mature, so this I explained, this is overshooting tops, you can see this overshooting tops. And so this is the anvil, and so highest rainfall come over the base, that cloud base, and the anvil we receive very less amount of rain. And this is, and sometimes there are different types of cumulonimbus clouds. This called scroll line. So it's very line of cumulonimbus clouds. So this is weather radar. Usually these are more likely over the mid-latitude regions. So this type of scroll lines we sometimes experience over our ocean also, but most of these are experienced in mid-latitude like Europe and especially America. So these are, and it can rotate also. This is so I can show you this type of tornado with the rotation of this rotating columns. The updraft can rotate, and these tornadoes can, it's very dangerous. And then we have water spouts. These tornadoes, similar thing occurred, developed over the ocean. We call water spouts. Water spouts actually we can experience in our oceans also, Indian Ocean also. Sometimes we got videos from foreigners and Sri Lankans also. They especially over this Putlam area and Panadur area, they pictured this type of tornadoes. Water spouts, not tornado. Water spouts are not that dangerous. And then now recently, because of this global warming, the fire tornadoes also there. So this picture got from the internet. This is over California, so they found fire tornadoes and dust devils. So if there's no moisture, but still the atmosphere is unstable, this type of dust devils also common in desert areas. And so these are the downdraft damaging winds in Sri Lanka. So locally isolated very strong winds associated with this downdraft, not non-tornadic, but very strong winds. And other thing is the thunderstorm can bring lot of rain. So this is actually recently we got this last year over Halwatura, that is Halwatura is in Kalutara district. So we got 150 millimeter rain in like 1 hour, 1.5 hours. So this thunderstorm cluster, the maximum rain reported over this Halwatura area. So within 10 minutes, we received 30 millimeter rainfall. So if this type of thunderstorm develop over Colombo or city area, there will be lot of damages. There will be flash floods, roads can be inundated, and sometimes even houses can inundated, because this very intense rain, they cannot, you know, move quickly. So it will, if we don't have good drainage system, so these city areas will be flooded. It's for a short period of time, maybe like for 6 hours or 3 hours, but we call this flash flood. Because this, especially this mesoscale convective system, there's some special phenomena with the thunderstorm clusters, so that can bring lot of rain. Sometimes it produces 2 trillion gallons of water. So if this system is stationary, so it can bring lot of disasters. So this is another heavy rain we experienced last year, this year actually, March 29. So this we call multiple thunderstorm. In generally thunderstorm, it has single cell thunderstorm, because with the downdraft, the place will be cooled. So there will not be much moisture supply and warm air supply. So one thunderstorm, there will not be more, but sometimes some special phenomena we can get multiple thunderstorms. So we can see this one cell, that this start from 0 and we get peak rain, and again it, like that. So this is a cumulative rain, this is a 10-minute rain. So it consists of 5 cells and bring 200 millimeter rain in 3 hours. So this is in a Haliagoda area. People said that they are this small, you know, like canals become rivers because of this. And then, but if this type of rain occurred in Colombo, so it will be flooded for maybe 3-4 hours. So that's the dangerous part with the thunderstorm. It can bring lot of heavy rain also. So this is, so you can see the rain over Colombo is not that much, but particular this area brings lot of heavy rain, and this is a lightning activity on that particular day. And other thing is, sometimes this is single cell thunderstorm. So you can see 104 millimeter rain occurred over this Galle region, but the rest of the place it's very low rain occurred. Only this 104, other places it's very 10 millimeter or something like that. So that is another question. Let me see. Oh yeah, sure. I will finish. What's the time now? Okay. So now I think I am done rainfall and everything. So this is the hail. So I will answer some questions. One is tsunami. I will answer that right now. Please explain about tsunami and why notification never go for the people. The problem is tsunami. It occurred in 2004. This is the first time Sri Lanka and Indian Ocean countries experience tsunami. So there was no authoritative agency to declare tsunami. So people thought that Department of Meteorology is the responsible agency. No, we didn't get any information about that, because Pacific Tsunami Warning Center identified that event and they wanted to deliver that message, but there was no authoritative agency to provide that information. So after that, in 2005, Disaster Management Center and Department of Meteorology together, they provide the responsibility to issue tsunami warnings. That is after 2005. This occurred in 2004, December 26. That time there was no authoritative agency to issue a tsunami warning, because we can, Department of Meteorology don't have authority to declare or warn about floods. Flood is under Irrigation Department. They have the authority. For landslides, we have National Building Research Organization. They have the authority to declare or warn about landslides. So Department of Meteorology have authority to warn about strong winds, heavy rain, tropical cyclones. Now we have tsunami after 2005. And other question is about lightning. Can lightning strike at same place twice? Yes, it can strike twice, because I think that's a myth. No lightning can strike same place twice, because I can show you, this is, yes, I don't, I can, because I think you people maybe like air traffic controlling, why this weather is very important. So I will briefly discuss that a bit, because weather impacts all the operations of the plane at the terminal when it is landed. So the freezing precipitation like snow can affect thunderstorms, especially strong winds, lightning, because we separately issue lightning alerts to the people who are working at the ground near the planes, because planes are very conductive. And if they are outside, inside the plane, it's a Faraday cage, so it's very safe. But outside, they can hit by the lightning. So if we have very strong lightning over Katnak Airport, we have to issue alerts to the ground handling people, though they have to stop their work until the lightning activity is cleared. Another thing, during departure, wind is very important, because we do take off and land into the headwinds. So the wind has to come to the this front side, you know, for the headwind we call. And this microburst, I don't have picture, because with the downdraft, there can be microburst. So that is very dangerous. And icing thunderstorms impact departure, approach also something similar. And en route, the thunderstorms are very dangerous. So I'll discuss one thing. This is one plane crash occurred in December 2014. So this is this Surabaya Airport to Singapore, one flight start from here to here, but it en route, this is very high, very strong cumulonimbus clouds. So within this cloud, actually pilot took some, I think, wrong decision, so plane crashed. Another one is, so this is the cloud cluster. So they lost the contacts here at this particular day, and it was crashed. And then another one is Air France 477, 2009, June 1st. This also, this plane passed this cloud cluster. We call this intertropical convergence zone. This is happening in the Atlantic Ocean. And so this is that cloud. So first cloud, actually they successfully passed, but once they traveled through the second cloud, so there was one instrument called pitot tubes, which gives the airspeed measurements. So it was covered by ice. In generally, they have de-icing equipments, anti-ice equipments, but sometimes especially these clouds has lot of super cool water droplets. They cannot suddenly they can deposit this ice crystal. So they don't have ability to this de-ice as very I mean very quickly. So they gives error message readings. So pilot did some because of he couldn't find the reason why he get these error messages. So somehow a plane crashed with lot of passengers. So that's why this weather part is very important for aviation also. So I'm going to stop now. I think I have answered most of the questions. Let me check. Let's see. How many minutes I have? Okay, I have another 2-3 minutes. So let me stop share this and I'll share your questions. So yes, your questions here. Yes. Let me share my share desktop. Yes. Okay. So these are the yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, stop here. And these are the questions you have asked. So based on the climate change part, I'll do the next day, and weather forecasting also first observations. So how can there be clouds in winter to call for the water vapor to, as I mentioned earlier, so clouds are consist of water droplets and ice crystals. So ice crystal can be there, and sometimes super cool water, like below freezing level water can be there because of the water pressure, vapor pressure. So it can exist there. And what does the coldest time of year line? Yes, so because energy comes from solar radiation, so the winter is that time due northern hemispheric winter, the sun's overhead portion is in the southern hemisphere, so it's aligned with coldest time with the darkest time. That is because that sun is the main energy source for all weather phenomena. What are the 4 types of weather observations? Maybe I think surface observations, upper air observations, satellite observation, and radar observations. The most important instrument in weather observation, it's difficult to say which one. I think all the observations are important. Pressure, temperature, wind speed, rainfall, all are important. So there is we cannot say there's most important instrument because other thing, 5th one, a lightning strike can same place twice. So rest of the is based on the weather prediction. So after I do weather forecasting, I'll answer these questions and climate change. So thank you very much. So I have taken, I think, one and more than maybe nearly 2 hours. So I'm going to stop from here. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, madam, for explaining so well and for answering all our questions as well. We are very grateful that you joined with us today in spite of your busy schedule. Because of that, we were able to learn about forecasting the weather and also about the challenges that are faced while doing so from someone who actually forecasts the weather for the whole country and someone who practically faces those challenges. So thank you very much, madam. And on that note, the first lecture of the weather reporting and forecasting program comes to an end. We will be uploading the lecture to the official YouTube channel of the Globe family of Royal College, so everyone can access it through that as well. Thank you to all our participants for joining with us. The second lecture will be held next week on Saturday, the 7th of August, and it will be about weather forecasting. So we invite all of you to join us next week as well. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them through the